Well, the Brics summit enters its second day today. Yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping called for the rejection of the U.S.'s trade war. They urged Brics countries to uphold multilateralism and defend the rules-based trading system. Ramaphosa also highlighted the positives achieved by the formation's bank.
In his opening remarks, President Cyril Ramaphosa highlighted the need for Brics countries to address issues of poverty, unemployment and inequality in the continent.
As South Africa, we have acknowledged that to effectively deal with some of the key challenges that we face, they being poverty, unemployment and inequality, we need to significantly increase the level of investment in our economy to lift growth as well as to create jobs for the many people in our country who are unemployed. We have embarked to address this on an investment drive that has taken us to meet with investors in various parts of the world, which will culminate in an investment conference which we will hold later this year.
International Relations and Cooperation's Deputy Minister Regina Mhaule says some state entities greatly benefited from the cash injections received from the Brics Bank.
The bank now has assisted our Transnet in South Africa to develop that big port in Durban. And that port is not only going to benefit South Africa, it's going to benefit SADC. It will work with these other ports within the SADC region to make sure that on matters of trade, it's easy to carry goods from South Africa or Southern Africa into the world in general. We have seen Eskom benefiting from the Brics Bank. There was a say that very soon we'll have challenges of Eskom, but now, up until today, there is no load shedding, and it shows that thanks to Brics.
The Businesses Forum says the delay in the funding of the power utility Eskom was largely due to the bank's housekeeping requirements.
I think the bank is, as I said, it's another financial institution. We shouldn't look at it as the only financial institution. So the initial projects were not South African projects that the bank decided to finance. There were some further requirements and additional information in terms of the projects that they would support from a South African point of view. So that information has been forthcoming now. The projects have been approved. And I think what's encouraging for me is that the bank is, it's a very early stages. It is becoming more business friendly.
For Afro World View, Sindisiwa Twala, Sandton.
All right, well, let's cross then to Sandton, where our reporter, Masachaba Dlamini, is standing by to discuss today's program, of course, of the Brics 10 Summit. And I believe she will be chatting to economic analyst Kanti Pai. Good morning to you, Masachaba.
Greetings to you and to the viewer. Indeed, we are at the Sandton Convention Center, where it's day 2 of the 10th Brics Summit. And this is where we've had different heads of states coming together under one roof to basically discuss a way forward economically and how investment can be injected into South Africa. And we do know that these different heads of states have been lobbying for other African countries to be part of Brics. Right now, we are joined by Kanti Pai, who's just going to be speaking to us as to what exactly does this mean towards the economy. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Okay, we'd just like to find out from you yesterday's messages that were shared by the different presidents. What does this exactly mean economically?
Well, I think one of the things that they've been talking about is this importance of trade and investment amongst countries. And I think one of the things that they've been talking about, of course, is this idea of the threat to actually what they call multilateralism, or making sure that actually trade happens and that we actually stay as a globalized world. And I think, even though they didn't say the words, but they're certainly talking about, the threats of Trump and his new decisions in terms of how he wants to design trade for the U.S. and how that might affect them. But trying to reiterate this, that actually we all should actually stay in this way. And of course, Brics is committed to actual trade. And then, of course, how we can work together in terms of investment, investing in the key sectors, making sure that education and skills is developed, focusing on people. and making sure that actually our economies grow and people are employed.
And then one of the things that was discussed yesterday is the fourth industrial revolution and basically how this would work towards the economical growth of Africa. Some people were saying it might be a negative, some people were saying it might be a positive, looking at it from a perspective of if we have robots doing everything, what then happens to mankind employment? Your take on this?
Look, I think there are technologies we don't need at the moment and that are too far anyway. So, but there are technologies that are very important, whether they are in agriculture, in health, and there's already some systems now that are being set up to say, look, in terms of health at least, we need to do more research. And I think the robotics are quite far because we don't really have the skills at the moment, and certainly it's not something that I think we are buying.
And then there is obviously discussions as well of these different heads of states lobbying that other African countries are added to Brics and the new development bank, that they would be part of this. What would this mean for Africa as a whole?
Well, I don't see that they would be added. I think one of the key things is that to make sure that the work of the development bank actually does sort of stretch out in actually making sure that it builds capacity. Remember, Brics is all about making sure that actually Africa also develops. So it's one thing to actually add them, but quite frankly more to make sure that as Brics works, it works for everybody else in the continent.
And then today we have a few reports that we're anticipating. Report back of the chair of Brics Business Council, and then there's a report by the president of the new development bank. What are you expecting out of today's sessions?
Well, I mean, those reports are things that were discussed yesterday in those sessions, about, building infrastructure, working together, financing the kinds of deals that are there. So they're going to be reporting really their deliberations from yesterday. And then, of course, in terms of actually just looking in terms of also the political situations, so those kinds of discussions are probably going to be had. So that's going to be quite interesting because I suppose the politicians will be talking more than anybody else today.
Thank you so much for this interview. That was Antipai, who is an economist, and basically just breaking down the scenarios that played out yesterday and what we can look forward to this morning and going into day 2 of the Brics Summit taking place in Johannesburg.